Hi, you're watching The Tattooed Psychic, and I'm very excited today because we get the lovely Dr. Savannah back. Hi, Dr. Savannah.
Hello, I'm really happy to be here for a second time.
I am so happy. Thank you, and honored, to be honest. I just love who you are, as you know. But today I wanted to pick your brain and your knowledge about eating healthier during this winter time
Mm,
and how we can pay attention to our bodies so we're not being too overindulgent without denying ourselves.
mhm.
And how do we pay attention to what our body is saying? Hey,
Yeah, this, this is such an important topic. I think extra important at this time of year because food has ties to so many different aspects of our lives and ourselves as humans. And there are so many influences on what we eat and why, especially around the holidays. So I love this topic. Um,
nice.
yeah. What are there any major questions that come to your mind in terms of food and nutrition around the holidays?
Well, I'm an emotional eater. That's, and I know that about myself, and that's something we should maybe talk about another time. But that's a habit I think I would like to break because it's a habit, I'm sure. And what was the question? I have to
Oh,
repeat.
yeah, no, it's fine. I'm just wondering if you have any major curiosities or like questions around this topic of nutrition around the holidays.
Well, I mean, there's all that good food coming out, right? It is.
Uh-huh.
It's heavy food. It's comfort
Uh-huh.
food for sure. And so maybe get some healthier options without denying yourself the pleasure of that. Do you know what I mean? Denying yourself the flavors,
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
experience of the fall foods, the
Yeah,
winter foods.
that's a great place to start. I can remember when I was younger, I had some disordered eating patterns. Um, and every Thanksgiving, a couple years I remember going on a really long run or doing like an organized run, like a turkey trot, and I would be so glad that I'm burning calories to get ready for Thanksgiving dinner. And there were years where I would try and eat as little as possible through the morning and the afternoon so that I can eat more at dinner. And I look back on those patterns and recognize from this place as an adult, I've healed those patterns. I realized that they were dysfunctional and they were not setting me up for success. And I want to explain a little bit about why that is and um, maybe what about the patterns I had was dysfunctional and unhelpful. If if you're curious
Yeah, of
about
course.
understanding that, so there's this concept that if we talk more about food in the future, we'll probably keep coming back to this. And the concept is the restrict, binge, shame cycle. So, regarding food and eating, what tends to happen if we restrict ourselves, whether we skip meals or we undereat and our bodies are underfed, we then will binge
Hmm.
because that's biologically, adaptively,
Mm,
what the body needs. So
right.
if you think about when you undereat, the body goes into a little bit of a starvation mode to where next time you do have access to food, um, your biological impulses will take over, and your brain tells your body, your digestive system, to take in all of the fuel that it can get because it doesn't know when you're going to eat next. It doesn't trust that you're going to feed yourself fully. So when we undereat, when we
Interesting.
restrict, we then will binge. That's just a natural consequence. It's not good, bad, right, wrong. It's just it's just what has to happen. But we then attach a moral value to these behaviors, and we feel bad about ourselves for binging. And so with that shame, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I feel gross, whatever the
Right.
self-talk might be, we then restrict again. Oh, I'm not gonna do that again. I'm gonna eat less. or some people will call it like a last supper phenomenon. I'm gonna have my last big meal, and then tomorrow we start new, we start fresh, like the day after Thanksgiving, starting fresh. Kind of this like last supper mentality where it's always tomorrow is going to be better. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's
So many
resonating.
people do this. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really, really common.
Yeah.
And it's that cycle. It's really the shame piece that keeps the cycle going. Because in and of itself, binging isn't a bad thing. It's not morally wrong to binge or to overeat. We make ourselves wrong for it. We see that what we've done. And sometimes the binging can be a tool for self-attack. But whether that's intentional or totally unconscious, we make ourselves wrong. And then we feel to make up for it, the wrong that we did, we have to then take more control, have more self-control, and eat less. This is a very destructive pattern in the long term. Restricting and binging can impact our blood sugar levels and contribute toward diabetes risk, and contribute to inflammation and over time weight gain, which a lot of people are trying to avoid, and this pattern is actually getting in the way.
Right.
So the one of the keys to letting go of this pattern is letting go of the shame, knowing that there's no moral value in eating less or eating more. It is just a biological behavior that we do, and once we do it, we can let go of it. But when I look back on my past Thanksgivings and my behaviors of restricting so that I wasn't gonna so it would come out even, so that I wouldn't gain weight the next day, not only did that backfire, but it contributes to the shame patterns. And so what I recommend to people now, and what I do now, is eat normally on Thanksgiving. Let yourself eat breakfast and lunch, and then let yourself have as much food as you'd like to have. And know that if you overeat, that's okay. There's nothing bad about that.
Right.
When you can release the shame part, you're less likely to get caught in that destructive cycle.
Yeah.
So that seems like a good place to kind of start this conversation around holidays and nutrition.
Right. And the sweets, the extra sweets that are around, especially after Thanksgiving, then we've got the sweets of the holidays, fudge and sugar cookies and all those tempting delights, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's probably about portion control too, right? Being aware it's okay to eat a couple of cookies, but don't eat 12 cookies.
Yeah, and that really comes down to the simple practice of mindfulness, where we have access to so much abundance, which is beautiful. And a lot of times we're eating while we're doing other things, and we're not letting ourselves purely enjoy our food, and we're distracting ourselves. Sometimes that's to avoid the guilt that we feel when we're eating something we think is bad. So we distract ourselves, and whatever the distraction is, whether it's talking on the phone or watching TV or whatever that might be, we're not paying attention to our hunger and fullness cues that can tell us, oh, I am satisfied after 2 cookies. When we're distracted, we might keep eating. We might eat faster than we normally would if we were truly savoring the food. And then we eat more than we actually wanted. And then we feel overly full. And then we start that cycle of shame again.
Yeah, I think I'm totally guilty of that as well. I think a lot of, especially women are.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I think, and women are pegged to be a certain way in our society, to be thin and all of that. I mean, I think the bigger girls have gotten some credit in the past couple of years, but yeah, so there's that shame and that fear. And then people, I know people will starve themselves. And I've talked to trainers who say that's just a really bad idea.
Yeah.
starve your body like that, like, and think you're going to lose weight and have it
Hmm.
be a healthy loss of weight. Because losing weight
Oftentimes,
has to be healthy.
right. Oftentimes the starvation sort of strategies are will backfire because of the survival mode your body goes into, whether it's short term under eating or a more prolonged period. Your body is going to want to rebound and take in more because your brain needs fuel to survive. It needs steady source of resources to be to lead the busy and full and fulfilled lives that we want to live. We need to be fully nourished. And if you go a prolonged period of time under eating, your brain's gonna make sure you get more after that. And usually the impact of dieting is then weight gain. The diet industry has it all backwards. Under eating and restricting is is not the right recipe for a healthy metabolism.
Right. And this is kind of off subject, but I do kind of want your opinion on this. How do you feel about weight loss surgery?
That is a big topic.
It is. And I don't know how I feel about it. I'm not planning on getting anything. But I know people who have gotten it and they have lost a lot of weight. But I wonder what it does to the body. I mean, it must be okay if they're doing it, but then I don't know. Our
Mm,
society does a lot of things maybe that aren't okay for us. So,
yeah. I wish the FDA regulation and approval of drugs and surgeries meant that it was actually safe, and that's just not the case.
you know,
I have I I have a client who has had a weight loss surgery and lots of downstream adverse impacts on her digestion and her dental health, um,
mm,
and lost weight initially and gained a lot back in her eating disorder recovery. And so, could it be an appropriate treatment for some people? I'm open to that being a yes. I don't think that's the majority of people. I think it's likely to do a lot more harm than good, depending on the person.
yeah, depending on the person, I would assume, and it looks like a brutal procedure, but yeah, I just wanted your take on that because I feel like it there has to be like I'm trying to lose weight now. I just figure I gotta just set my goal small because if I go too big, it's just too overwhelming. Do you understand? Like it's just let's just keep it to a small number, and then if I do that, go, oh, okay, I can do this now. But for me, I think it is emotional healing, eating for sure. And what would you suggest for somebody who wants to lose, let's just say 10 pounds, especially around the holidays now, right? Like, am I crazy? But what would you suggest, like, somebody who doesn't have that pattern of healthy eating, that pattern of treating their body that great, like, without overwhelming and completely changing their diet to a point where they just, do you understand? Like, it gets,
Mm-hmm.
I hope I'm making
Yeah.
sense. Yeah,
For some people, um, keeping weight on is a protective mechanism.
that's me.
So at a baseline, the body needs to feel like it can rest and be in a safe place to to release, to let go, to shed. So that to me is number one. And part of that safety is, does your body trust that you're going to feed it fully, consistently? Because for a lot of people, especially for a lot of women, the answer to that is no. Meals are not consistent, not balanced, not fully nourishing. So the body needs that kind of foundational level of safety to get out of the survival mode that's keeping almost like a hoarding of resources. We need to take in all the resources we can get. The body is in that kind of protective mode. So the first thing, if someone wants to lose weight, and I'll just say that I don't do a lot of weight loss in my practice. If someone wants to lose weight, I will support them in helping their body to be more balanced, more healthy, more vital. But I never prescribe weight loss because I find it tends to be more harmful than helpful. However, if someone comes to me and says they want to lose weight, I'm initially asking, are you getting enough nutrients and fuel to where your body has a physiology that feels stable and grounded? A lot of people don't have.
I don't have that.
Mm.
I'm pretty sure I don't. I've always treated my body like I've just been so detached. I think we talked about that in the first podcast, and how detached I've always been, but I am getting better on it, you know, and it's something I am working on. Like I said, I am an emotional eater. I think a lot of people are, especially children who have been abused, emotionally, physically, whatever. It tends to be food has, and I grew up in foster homes too. Okay, so it was drinking powdered milk, liver and onions. It was like not healthy food for me to, you know. I remember the powdered milk. It was so bizarre, right? It's
Wow.
Yeah. So I didn't grow up with anyone showing me to eat healthy. And I've been real lazy on teaching myself.
Mm.
Yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
at the point where I really want to learn how to do all of that, you know, and be healthier because I'm getting older. That's another thing is as you get older, your friends start to pass away, and we've lost a lot of friends, you know, due to
Mm.
health issues.
Mhm.
And I'll tell you something really quickly because I'm an emotional eater, and then we'll get on to another subject. But
Yeah.
because I know there's people out there who do this, especially women who have been abused. Today I was cleaning out some papers and I found the two restraining orders of the two men who who attacked me, right? And I thought to myself, wow, I have come so far because that really made me a shut-in, you know, for a long time. I've done a lot of healing work on that. And I have found I was thinking about it, like how it emotionally affected me. And I was realizing my body has literally been through hell. It's been beaten, raped, abused. And so no wonder I don't know how to feed it nutrients, right? I'm just trying to keep it alive.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. When you're in survival mode and trying to protect yourself from harm and violence and danger,
Right.
food is not your first priority.
No.
Food falls more into the rest and digest category of things. In order to digest food, you have to be in a state of openness and rest and
Right.
safety. And so while food is essential for our survival and what we eat does impact our survival nervous system, food is not essential for this moment's survival. So if our brain is thinking, I need to make sure I live the night, whether it's a literal danger or an emotional flashback can do all the same
Right.
psychology, then a healthy eating pattern is not very accessible in that kind of state.
Right. Right. But here's what I've been doing lately is I watch a lot of YouTube and I'm learning how to cook at home and eat better and have meals at home instead of going out and
Mhm.
eating with better ingredients. I don't even buy bread anymore. I just make my own bread now. And I'm really trying to pay more attention to that now, to that body aspect of my life. Like, but it just hit me like, no wonder I'm so detached from the body because it's just been, the body hasn't been my friend. It hasn't been, you know, a safe place for me. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah. So it makes sense why you wouldn't spend time taking care of your body if what you learned was your body was a dangerous place to be.
Right,
The safer thing would be to disconnect from it and not pay attention to it because
right,
there's pain there. There's pain and memories of harm.
right. And I know we had talked briefly about paying attention to the intuition of the body and what it's telling you to eat. And I have been doing that too. And my body has been really wanting carrots lately, and some cucumbers. And my body also likes jalapenos and pickles. And but I've been paying attention to that. So let's talk more about that. Like, what do you suggest to people on how to pay more attention to what our body is telling us?
Mm.
Does that make
Hmm.
sense? Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. This is an interesting question because for people who've been through traumatic stress, um, sometimes the what you notice in your body can be dysregulated and uncomfortable, and your sort of spidey senses are heightened when there isn't real danger. So there is a process of learning to discern what is trauma and what is intuition and what's the difference. So that's just one thing that I'll say. But in terms of food and tuning into our body's needs, the really kind of good first step that I like to invite people into is, what are your hunger cues? How do you know when you're hungry? A lot of us actually aren't very connected to the experience of hunger. Whether we learned a pattern of never getting hungry because there was something that felt threatening about that, or we ignore our hunger cues long enough because we're busy, or we don't think that we, at a kind of fundamental level, we don't believe that we're worth taking care of. And so we disconnect enough that our body kind of stops sending obvious like stomach grumbles, you know?
Right.
So that's usually the first thing I invite people to explore is, what does it feel like for you to be hungry? And how do you know you're hungry? And then on the flip side of that, how do you know you're full and satisfied? What does it feel like to be full? Some people are averse to feeling hungry and they don't like that. And other people are averse to feeling full and they avoid that. So we all have a different relationship to the ways that our body communicates these signals. And we assume that we're going to feel a kind of gnawing in the stomach, which usually when you're hungry enough, you'll feel some of that.
Right, right.
But if you're in survival mode, your your body isn't going to prioritize the stomach acid, the enzymes, the motility, which is the movement through the digestive system. Your body's not going to prioritize those actions that make you feel hungry in the first place. So your hunger cues might show up as you feel a little woozy, you feel irritable, you're kind of
Angry?
angry. Yeah, I could hangry is
Angry, yeah.
classic. Yeah, yeah. And I don't think we talked about this in the last podcast. I can explain what's happening there with being hangry and some of these other hunger
Oh, I'd
cues.
love to know, yes.
So the body is designed to give us a hunger signal, um, to know that we're hungry, to know that we need food, and then fullness signals to know that we've had enough. And when we are in more of a survival mode, we're living stressed lives. We're disconnecting ourselves from our bodies to a greater or lesser extent. We are probably not going to hear those hunger cues. But the brain still needs fuel, still needs, like, the glucose starts to drop when your breakfast is fully digested and your body's using up that fuel. Blood glucose starts to drop down and your brain should be giving you hunger cue. Like, oh, I'm ready to eat. Appetite comes up. When we're in survival mode, we don't always hear our hunger cues. So the brain takes the back road, if you will, and makes sure that you have some signal telling you to eat food and to keep your blood glucose up. So what happens when you don't have hunger cues and your blood glucose is going down? Your brain tells your other organs to start giving you adrenaline and cortisol, because those are stress hormones, the two main ones. Those hormones release glucose from the storage in the muscles and in the liver. So when the glucose starts to go down, the body needs food, but you're not giving the body food, your brain will find a way to bring the glucose up. It's a really adaptive mechanism. It works well. However, when we have adrenaline in our blood, we all know what that feels like.
Yes.
It can be, sometimes it's excitement, you know, if you're skydiving, it's a good feeling, but out of the context of something fun and exciting, adrenaline feels shaky, dizzy, nauseous, jittery, anxious, rageful, any and all of the above. Everyone has a different sort of response to stress hormones and how this feels in their body. But for a lot of people, this more adrenaline response is the hunger cue, because they're not getting the stomach sensation, because they've disconnected somewhat from their body and they don't feel that. So the brain's taking the back road.
Right. And it's getting them hangry. Listen, the best hangry video I've ever seen, and it's on TikTok and Instagram. And it's this girl, there's a few people in the car and they're videotaping her, and they just picked her up from work and she's super hungry and she's getting so angry. She's so angry. She's like, I'm just hungry. She's screaming, I'm just hungry and I just want Wingstop. You know, and she's screaming and people put heavy metal music to it. It is the best. But that's how you get sometimes. You're just so hungry. Shut the hell up, give me some food, and that's it, you know? And so that was the best hangry person I've ever seen. I just want some Wingstop, and they put metal. It was great.
That's such a classic example of being hangry.
It is. That's when we were talking about it. I just kept seeing her in my head going, oh my gosh, that girl was hangry.
Yeah, that's on the far end of the spectrum where you have a lot of stress hormones in your system.
Yeah, there's a lot. She had worked 10 hours a day, apparently. Was very hungry. But yeah, this is interesting. You know, it's interesting because you're right, we're all so different in how we react to things and how we work on things. And even in spirituality practice, you know, in spirit practice, people will say, oh, I want to do what you do, or I want to be like this, or I'm like, just be yourself. And you have to find what works for you, because what works for somebody might not work for somebody else. You know, that's why it's important to pay attention to what you're doing and what your body is saying, and what you are intuitively guided to. And without the stress, after you do this, when you deal with the trauma and all of that, you intuitively start paying attention more to your body, because that barrier is gone. Does that make sense? Yeah. And that's kind of where I'm at. And I know some other people at that point too, where, wow, we've got to change every program we've had with our diet. And it's really hard to do. Yeah. It's not easy to break the patterns of eating. Yeah.
Yeah. They're deeply woven patterns and deeply woven beliefs about food and about our relationship with food.
I have friends who consider themselves foodies, and I would say they are, because they travel around and eat at really nice restaurants and try all these different foods. And I enjoy doing that as well. But again, it is that level of respect with food, I suppose, right? Like it's just that level of Like they would never probably go to a bar and eat bar food because it's not to that standard. Does that make sense? It's like, but I will go to it's that level of, I guess, connection with food that
Mm-hmm.
some people have and some people don't.
Yeah, they seem to have a different sort of relationship with food where they they highly value the food itself, um, the experience with the food, and also they value themselves and what food they will take.
Exactly. Yeah. I need to get to that point, I think. And I think a lot of people do, especially in America. Our diets aren't very good. And the foods here are very, man, I was just watching shows on how they spray paint the red potatoes. I had no idea.
Oh no, are you serious?
Yeah, they were showing how they put this certain thing to make the potatoes red because red potatoes sell better apparently. And it's just so bizarre to me how much we allow poison on our food here. Even in, Monsanto is banned in many, many countries, even Mexico and Australia, I believe too. And we allow these chemicals on our food, and that just baffles my mind. And I think that we should be more aware of that because it's not healthy, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, the food climate in our country makes it a lot harder to have a healthy
It
food
does.
relationship.
And it's so expensive.
Yeah, it is.
They make it so expensive to eat healthy, natural foods. And that's why I think I started taking on cooking because, I started realizing that I can eat healthy foods and cook them myself, and it doesn't have to be super expensive. It's just more being aware of the products to use and that stuff. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah, there's a way to eat healthy on a budget. Of course, organic, free range, grass fed, non-GMO, all of that does cost more.
I know.
Um, but it's not necessary to buy the best quality form of every food. Uh, you can get a conventional form of certain fruits and veggies, and you don't have to have everything free range
Yeah.
and you know in an ideal world we would all have access to affordable food that is grown with love and on really rich land and animals that are really well taken care of and not sprayed with toxic chemicals. Like that's the
The
ideal,
dream.
that's the
Yeah.
dream that we hope for. But the reality is people live in food deserts where all they have access to is a mini mart, and they don't
Yeah.
have a selection of, let alone organic, they don't even have many fresh vegetables at
Yeah.
all available.
Yeah.
And yeah.
It's mind blowing, really, how, and all over the country too, different diets and different ways of eating
Mhm.
and that type of thing. Yeah, it's the southern way is a lot different than the northern way, and
Mhm.
uh, and just really good. I love southern food. That's what I'm learning really how to cook is I love it. It's
Mhm.
just so good, but it's not all bad. People think southern food, they're like, oh, fattening, unhealthy. I'm like, it's not all bad. I mean, it can be, but I think all food can be. It's just how you choose to approach it, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. There's a balance. Balance is a huge word in nutrition. Finding a balance. Some people will use what's called the 80-20 rule, or 80%. And I don't do diets. I don't like rules, but there's kind of a general rule of thumb that's pretty popular. 80% of what you eat is more of a healthy eating pattern, and then 20% is is the junk food or the bad things. And while I don't like to label things as good or bad, that's kind of an example of um, the how helpful it can be to not hold ourselves to rigid rules and standards when it comes to nutrition, because a lot of times we know that dieting backfires, and being, at least for a lot of people, being overly strict and rigid with your food will backfire. And so allowing some lenience and some imperfection is, I think, the sustainable approach to feeding yourself in a healthy way long term.
And I think too, learning how to pay attention to your body and what it's saying, and doing the work on that too. It's
Yeah.
a constant connection and being able to work. But I did have a friend I was thinking about, you were talking about the 80-20 thing. She had one cheat day. She was real healthy. Like her body was really nice. She worked out and she ate healthy. She didn't starve herself during the week, but she ate healthy. But on Sundays, this girl, she was like, that's my cheat day. And she went and bought Doritos and just whatever she wanted. And she ate until she was satisfied with it and then threw the bag away. Didn't eat the whole bag or anything, just got her fill of what she wanted, those flavors, the taste. And she just so she wouldn't be tempted to eat it during the week, she would just throw the rest away or give it to her neighbor or whatever. But I kind of liked that. I was like, because that gives you something to look forward to. Like, oh, I'm gonna get some ice cream. She would get ice cream and eat just a few bites and be like, okay, that was great. And I really respected how she could discipline herself like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept. That, I think that works for some people.
I think it works for some people. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like the idea of a cheat day, because it brings the morality back into food. Like,
Right.
for 6 days I've been good, and so now I deserve to cheat.
Right.
Bad. And for me, that re-emphasizes the whole diet mentality, where I binge and then I feel bad and then I restrict again. But some people, that might be a sustainable long-term solution. And if so, that's great. I'm like, that could be a way to have your cake and eat it too. Pun intended.
Years later, she told me that she had a lot of emotional problems, and the food thing was the only thing she could control.
So this pattern might be just another kind of control strategy for
I think
her.
it was for her because we talked about it. I didn't see her for a few years, but we talked about that, like because I saw her eating differently.
Yeah, that was kind of my next question of is she happy? Is she healthy? Does she feel good about
now she eats what she wants, but not, again, not to excess.
Yeah.
But there's no more cheat days or anything, she said. But I just always found it was curious. But I still respect her way of disciplining her food because she is really cautious about what she puts in her body. She's very aware of it and what's good and not good for it, you know. And teaches me how to eat really healthy snacks like sweet potato snacks instead of chips and that type of thing, you know.
Yeah. The word discipline is so interesting to me too. And I've had a really a very varied relationship with discipline through my life. I would have, as a younger person, I would say I was extremely disciplined. And then kind of toward the end of college and into medical school, I kind of let go and sort of saw myself as lacking discipline. And we could go on a whole tangent about this. But discipline, I kind of see it as you could be disciplined from a place of love toward yourself, or you could be disciplined from a place of shame and fear. And we can use any behavior to help ourselves and be more connected and be more loving. We could use that same behavior to punish ourselves or feel more disconnected or more shame. And so that's just what comes to mind with discipline is what's the intention behind the discipline, because I think it can be a really helpful tool to really have agency and influence over your choices regarding food, and in that way have discipline and know what feels good and what doesn't feel good and how to treat your body well. But then when we talk about discipline in terms of extreme diets and extreme restriction, that to me seems like it's coming more from a place of punishing and controlling our bodies.
Yeah,
So that's just what comes up when I hear the word discipline.
right. I understand that. Yeah. Um, to me, discipline is somebody, yeah, who's just very aware of. But I get what you're saying too, honestly, because I could go both ways, really. 'Cause it could be just a control thing, an emotional control thing, or just a love thing. And I think a lot of the times it's an emotional control thing for people. I don't honestly believe a lot of people know how to love themselves. I think I just figured it out and I'm 57. And like, I mean, truly figured out how to be in love with who I am. And now learning to be in love with the body. That's a different thing to me. My spirit and my soul and loving my that was very difficult for me. Loving my body was the last thing on my mind. It was just a shell that I'm carrying this other stuff around in. It was just I decorated it with pretty tattoos and that was fine with me. And then but my main healing was all that emotional shit, that abuse, that trauma and all of that had nothing to do with my body, but it did because my body was the thing holding all that energy. And so I had to learn how to get that energy out and go, okay, and then deal with that emotional stuff. And now I'm working on the body thing. And now the holidays are here. And my body, I find, is naturally trying to get me off of sugar. It's like telling me you've got to stop. Like it's okay to eat it once in a while, but my whole thing is sugar.
Mm.
That's my addiction. And so I guess I have to work on that because you can get addicted to sugar, right?
You can get addicted to anything.
Anything, right?
Addiction, yeah. There's the there's the official like definition of addiction in regards to drug abuse and alcoholism and sex addiction, but it's I think of addiction sort of on a spectrum like any other mental illness or mental health symptom. um, Addiction is turning toward a coping mechanism compulsively to avoid an underlying discomfort or pain, and we can turn to all different kinds of behaviors and things and people and practices to avoid the stuff that's underneath that feels too much to handle. And with sugar, sometimes there's an aspect of an imbalanced gut microbiome and an overgrowth of yeast, and certain yeast and microbes actually thrive off of sugar. And so some of the cravings can be related to that microbiome imbalance on top of the habit of turning toward the feel good thing and away from the thing that's hard to be with. So there are multiple factors sometimes that play a role.
I didn't know that. That's interesting. The body is so interesting how stuff that goes on inside of us and what we do to it. And it keeps living.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just keeps going. I'm like, how does it
so
do
resilient.
that? When it's so fierce.
I know.
It's so fierce. And then you have people who have the weaker body and other people have stronger bodies, other people getting sick more and all these things. And it's so strange to me and complex and fascinating, really, the human body is, and the brain too. It just really fascinates me the more I'm learning about it and how to pay attention to these things and what my body wants, because once you do start paying attention to what your body is craving, it's almost like it won't let you settle till it gets it. And I'm not talking about the toxic stuff. I'm talking about, because I'm asking, the universe and my body to connect with me, help me connect with it and tell me what it needs. And it's been stuff like I never thought I would eat, like a lot of beets. My body's saying, you need some of this nutrients and beets. And I'm like, okay. And I mentioned some other things too, but I think that I would like to encourage more and more people to learn how to do that, because I think it will just help in all of the healing process as a whole, the emotional and the body. So they can be, and that's why I want to do it. So I can be mind, body, spirit is all in sync. Not my mind is okay, my spirit is okay, but my body's all fucked up. Right? So, you know what I mean? Because then that starts to poison my mind and my spirit again, because it's not getting what it truly needs to operate fully. I hope that makes sense. Yeah.
Every level of our being affects and impacts every other level of our being.
Absolutely. So I'm really going to be working on that, and I'm glad you're here teaching us about all of this and the holiday season. Because I got a little nervous. I'm like, oh Lord, I'm probably, gonna gain like 60 pounds, but then I'm like, what, that's not true at all. That's just the old pattern way of thinking. Yeah.
Maybe I can sort of generate a couple of tips.
That would be awesome.
I'm just thinking about what would be helpful as sort of anchors to remember as we go into the holiday season. Wanting to treat ourselves well, wanting to enjoy the parties, and wanting to emerge, dare I say, even healthier on the other side than when we're entering. So the first thing that I would recommend is make sure you're eating enough protein, actually, during the day. Whenever someone has sugar cravings, I wonder whether they're getting enough protein, because sugar cravings can be a symptom of the up and down blood sugar that happens when we're not eating consistently enough. And protein breaks down into amino acids, which can then be converted to blood glucose to keep our hormones and our blood sugar more steady. So we're less likely to have these uncontrollable feeling cravings when we are well nourished with enough protein.
So what are some good protein snacks?
Let's see. What did I reach for yesterday? I have a packet of deli turkey meat, and just took a couple slices when I needed a little snack. Sometimes I'll roll turkey slices around a piece of cheese. Costco has Beecher's cheese sticks. I'll just give that tip. They're really good.
People love Costco, right? Okay, so just little snacks and protein, and that'll keep your body going rather than the sugar.
Yeah, a handful of nuts, walnuts, pistachios, almonds.
This is good for me to know.
Yeah. So in order to feel, for our body to feel like it's fully nourished, we need to have fats, because that gives the satiation factor in part comes from having eaten fats and lipids from our diet. So anyone who eats low fat, you're bound to have cravings because your body's not getting that satiation factor. So fats help you to feel nourished and satisfied. Fiber, foods that have fiber help to slow digestion a little bit, so your blood sugar doesn't spike and dip, and you end up with cravings and being hungry so soon after you eat. So including fiber. Fiber comes in the form of lots of fruits have fiber: apples, pears, peaches, cherries. Tropical fruits tend to be low in fiber, whereas the stone fruits and the More things that are in season right now are higher in fiber. And then seeds are high in fiber. Pumpkin seeds, chia seeds, flax seeds, hemp seeds, um, beans and lentils, black beans, kidney beans, mung beans, all of those really high in fiber. So those help us, fats and fibers help us to feel full and satisfied and prevent the crashes and spikes. And protein helps with that too. And then a lot of people think that low carb is the way to go. And actually, when you eat low carb, depending on the person, that can make your body also feel like it's not getting enough. If you've ever had a low carb meal and then you're sitting there feeling like, I feel like I need more food, but I just ate a lot. Your body needs glucose. It runs on glucose. So having a readily available form of carbohydrate, whether that's rice or oats or sweet potatoes or any other starchy vegetable, is healthy for the body. So keeping in mind some of these like major categories to create a balanced meal and eating often enough throughout the day so that when you get to the holiday party, you're not just like chomping at the bit because you're undernourished, and you'll eat anything in sight because your brain just,
you'll just go.
Yeah, your brain biologically wants the easiest to digest food on the table. That's adaptive. So you go for the sugary thing. If you're better nourished throughout the day, you have more agency. You get to choose instead of feeling like out of control.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I'm going to do for the next month? I'm going to focus on I'm glad you gave me those food tips and stuff, because I'm going to focus on eating those foods and getting the snacks
Awesome.
and the nuts and the meats and the cheeses and the fiber, and really focusing on that, and rice and vegetables for dinner and that type of thing. I mean, because that's what I need is, and I know other people need this too, is you need guidance sometimes on what to eat, like what.
Yeah.
Because we don't know. Nobody teaches us these things really,
Exactly.
unless we had parents that taught us this, which I did not. Many people don't, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There's the intuitive aspect of eating, listening to your body, your hunger and fullness cues, knowing what sounds good, what feels good. But then there's also this other just logistical, practical side of like basic nutrition and learning, having a working understanding of what's healthy, how do you make a meal? So both of these are essential components of nutrition. We talked more about this side for the first part of this conversation, and now we kind of ventured over to this side. So it feels like we kind of rounded out a little bit the conversation. And there's certainly much more to talk about nutrition and meal making. So maybe this could be a part one, but I'm glad we got both parts a little bit.
Well, I'm going to do it for a month because I would love to have you back next month. And then I'm going to keep a diary. And I'm going to keep progress on how my body's reacting and feeling. And then maybe we can talk about that too. But
yeah.
And I'm somebody, I know the holidays are coming and all that. And I'm really glad you said you don't really like diets and all that, because I know this holiday that people are, and New Year's, everyone's always like, oh, I'm going to lose weight on New Year's Day. You know, that's their New Year's resolution. Like, and I don't do that, but I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think that really sets people up for failure anyway. And because so many people can't keep up to that, you know, and they don't, they join a gym but don't go, and that type of thing. And I just want to, you know, say that it goes beyond New Year's Day. It's something that we should be doing all the time. And hopefully we'll just keep learning with you on people who don't know how to treat their bodies as well as we want to, can get the tools that we need to do that.
Yeah, I love these conversations with you. I love talking about this topic in the more nuanced way, and keeping in mind the stress and trauma and how those are obstacles to making choices that otherwise seem simple, but they're hard and we feel stuck. Like, these are some of my favorite conversations and places to how do we support ourselves in this kind of territory.
And each other, you know, I'm all about supporting each other,
yes,
and
yes.
I'm never too ashamed to talk about my trauma, because I think that by sharing our stories and what we're going through, I know there's other people who go through it, and then they can realize, oh, I'm not alone. I've been through that. And now I'm dealing with this, and I want to love my body and look in the mirror and go, wow, I look great, instead of, oh, I look like shit. You know what I mean? I think that a lot of people want to feel that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these are universal challenges and
Yeah,
desires that we're talking
they
about
are.
here.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to have a great holiday, though, and I am going to enjoy
Good.
my kids are coming over, and I'm going to cook a Southern feast, as we call it. We don't really celebrate Thanksgiving as the name Thanksgiving. We call it feast day,
Uh-huh.
and so we just eat.
That sounds great.
Yes, it'll be great. It'll be awesome. I'm more excited, honestly, not about the eating this year, which is I don't usually celebrate the holiday, so I don't really eat the traditional Thanksgiving meal anyway. At Christmas, that's my problem with the sweets. But the other, my kids like it and stuff, but I was thinking, you know, it's not about me getting to eat the food this year. It's more the preparation and having my kids eat it. That's what I'm really excited about. So yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. That's what's going to get me excited, is my son getting to taste and my daughter getting to taste the foods I've been practicing cooking, you know.
You're building a renewed relationship with food, and you're getting to do that with them.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. All right, Savannah. Well, this is great. Tell people how they can reach out to you. Do you have webinars? I know you had a great webinar recently.
Yeah. So I'll probably be hosting more webinars in the future. If people want to know about that and have updates, they can join my mailing list. Go to my website, savannahbucant.com. My last name is Bukant, Savannah spelled like the city. And I email my list regularly on any offerings I'm putting out, workshops, things. I actually have a solstice mini retreat coming up on December 17th. It's in person at the yoga studio where I teach, and it's all women.
What is this? I want to go.
We just announced it today. So it's a 4-hour block of time, 1 to 5 on December 17th. And it's going to be a time we'll have an opening circle, women's circle, time for restorative yoga practice, time for reflection, heart-centered intention setting, and I'm going to cook a nice meal as well. So it's my first retreat. It's a mini retreat, but I'm really looking forward to it. So if that strikes anyone's fancy, it's totally open at this point. There are spots.
Well, send me an email, and I would love to attend. I'm gonna check my calendar, and it's in Woodinville.
It's in Woodinville at Root to Rise Yoga.
Yeah, so that's awesome. That's very exciting. If you're in Washington and you want to check that out, check out her website, and she will email you. I get your emails all the time, and you always give tips, and I really like that. And I got the winter email about, you know, the winter coming up and all of that. So that was great. But yes, I'm excited. That's really cool. I'm really proud of you. That's awesome that you're doing all of that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm really excited. And I'm now aware of how dark it is in my office as the sun just went down.
The sun went down. It's dark now in the Northwest. It's winter. It's winter here.
All I have is my salt lamp. My salt lamp just went out.
Oh no. Well, we'll wrap it up on that one. So thanks to Dr. Savannah, and thanks for watching The Tattooed Psychic. If you want a session with me, you can reach me at readingswithfaye@gmail.com, and we will talk to you soon. And next month, we'll have more exciting stuff with Dr. Savannah. Thanks for watching.